Boy, I hope everything's set up properly. Oh, it's been a minute. I have some of MFT's August release, as well as some Pearblossom Press Easy Lights. I'm going to create this fun, electrifying card just to let someone, or to ask someone, how you doing? So I've got all of this supplies. Let me show you what I've got to play with, and then I'll show you how I made this card. I think I'm gonna fine tune it a little bit. The lightning a little bit off kilter, a little bit more. I like how I ink blended the green around the card, but I think I want to kind of switch it up a little bit. Just, you know, how you kind of want to tweak things sometimes. That's what I want to do. I want to tweak it. I love how the fog fades into the fog and how I've made everything black in the background. I love that look. I think I want to move him over a little bit so he's not so in front of this window, because I like that I've left the windows kind of open without something right behind them. You could easily make a light up card lighting up the house, you know, and the windows are all like with vellum behind it, and you could light up the house. But for me, I liked the look of dilapidation, and you really do get that when you leave the windows open like that. So, and I like the boards that MFT gives you in this set that you can kind of like put on the windows or the doors to create even more dilapidation, which is scary. Woo! So I have the dies. I have this set. This is called Boo Crew, and it features a couple of, or 4 adorable trick-or-treaters. This Frankenstein has a vampire, a mummy, and a witch, and then it has some coordinating sentiments as well as these adorable candies. And then the die set, I think it's called Haunted House, and it has a tree, which I'm gonna actually use the tree as my lightning. That's what I used here. So it doesn't have any leaves on it, and I love it. When I first saw it, I was like, wow, that kind of looks like lightning. So I'm gonna use it as lightning today. As you can see with my card. And then I wanted it to be behind this awesome haunted house so that you could ring the doorbell, lightning the sky? I don't know. You know what I mean. I also have Pearblossom Press Easy Lights, which are battery operated LED light. They're getting a little tangled. So these are battery operated LED lights, and there's 3 of them on each battery. I've already used one in this card here, but I'm going to show you today how I used this to make my lightning. So let's get creative. So I have a lot of pieces here, but we're going to start with the background. I have a piece of Neenah 110 pound solar white classic Crest cardstock that I'm going to use. This is cut to 3.5 by 4 3/4 inches. That's just my favorite size. It leaves a nice border of gray around it, and that's just me. But I'm going to take this and some Distress Oxide inks and create a background. So I have my Nuvo blender brush. This one's for green and blue colors. I'm using the same green side for all 3 shades of green. I also have my microfiber towel so that I can clean off in between each shade. And then I'm blending it on a little glass palette that I bought from Amazon. This just works just like any of your other glass mats. It's just a little bit smaller. I use that same blue microfiber towel to clean my glass palette in between color changes. I started by using my lightest color first, which happens to be Distress Oxide Shabby Shutters. And then I went on to Twisted Citron, and then finally Mowed Lawn. I was very light-handed with the Mowed Lawn. I wanted it to be a very bright green, so I tried to stick to the Twisted Citron as for the majority of the color, and then adding the Shabby Shutters as like a faded side to it, and then a little bit of Mowed Lawn to darken and deepen that color. I'm using the dies to make sure I have good placement of the color. All 3 colors were ink blended around the outside of the panel, leaving a nice white center that gave me a place for my lightning to strike. So I've decided that we're going to liven up the background a little bit more using the same Distress Oxide inks. So yeah, I'm going to take the Distress Oxide inks, mix them with water so that it gets a little bit runnier, just a little, and then we're going to splatter it on the background. Let's see what happens. I have a mason jar here that I've put a little bit of Plasti Dip on the bottom to make it non-skid. That's why it looks black. I promise the water is clean, clear water. I'm putting my panel into my splat box and using the same Distress Oxide inks, but this time I'm adding them to the glass mat and then changing the thickness, watering it down a little bit with that clean, clear water. Then I'm picking it up with my brush and tapping it over an acrylic block to splatter on the same colors of ink that I used to ink blend the background, but this time splattering it in the background, and I'm just changing it and kind of moving the color around the exterior where I ink blended the panel. Of course, this is not enough for me. I must make it shiny. So I'm using Imagine Crafts Frost and Sparkle Shimmer Spray, as well as Hero Art's White Iridescent Shimmer Spray. Yes, all three. I love them. It makes a super shiny background. I love it. But it is now quite damp. So I'm just going to put this in my little wind tunnel down here and put the fan on it so it will dry quicker. Ta-da! And it will sit there quietly drying. I am going to cut all the things, the house, the wood, the grass, the clouds, everything except for the background and the image. I am using My Favorite Things Black Licorice cardstock to cut out the house and the boards and the grass. This is the Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. It's the smaller of the two that I am currently using. The door on the die cut piece does open, but for this card, I sealed it shut. I'm also cutting a piece of grass for the background. This is my favorite grass edge die. It's by Your Next Stamp. It's just like a wonky, wacky, untrimmed, unkempt grass. I love it. I'm also using a cloud border die by Your Next Stamp and a piece of Simon Says Stamp Fog cardstock to trim that piece that goes across the top. So I originally colored this guy on Neenah 110-pound Classic Crest Solar White cardstock, which is my usual go-to cardstock for coloring with alcohol markers. I think it does a super job. But I've recently been given some alcohol marker specific paper, so I want to do a little comparison for my own enjoyment. So I'm going to color him today with the alcohol marker specific paper. I've never used any alcohol marker specific paper before this one, so this is really impressing me, and so I want to actually have like a side-by-side difference. I'm also going to add, I think, a little pumpkin or something to our scene here, so I'm also stamping a pumpkin. Tim actually suggested that we add a pumpkin to the card, so that's what I'm doing. I'm stamping with My Favorite Things, their alcohol marker friendly ink, and I'm using that alcohol marker friendly paper to color with. I have been really loving my Tombow ABT Pro alcohol markers, so that's what I'm going to be using today. This is my color swatch book. I bought a couple of these books from Amazon for different purposes around my craft room, and I'm loving it for this purpose, for my color swatches for coloring. I don't love that sign that I have on the front, but you know, whatever, I can change that. I did create a color map for you. You can find it over on my blog or over on Instagram so that you can pin and or save it. If you're interested in the exact markers that I use, that's where that information can be found. The color maps help me keep color combinations straight and also inspires me to use certain color combinations. So that's why I like to make those. This is not very intense coloring here, guys. This is kind of boring. I mean, it's just a pumpkin. It's an orange pumpkin. I'm using the darkest colors towards the outside of my pumpkin, and it's a rather small pumpkin, so it's really not exciting. And then I'm moving my lightest colors into the center of the pumpkin, trying to make it round, appear more round.
I felt that this combination, this color combination in particular, had a mighty big jump from the middle color, the middle shade to the lightest shade. And so I felt like I needed to do some tip to tip, which is taking the lighter marker and touching the tip of the darker marker. And that way you get like a blended color to use for a few seconds on your project on the paper. So that's what I did. Then I moved on to the mouth and the eyes, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to do just a darker orange color in there or just make them black. I ended up going with the black, and I used 2 markers, which was overkill. You can't even tell that there's 2 colors used, so just use 1. And I did the same thing for that little tiny brown stem at the top of my pumpkin. If that wasn't overkill enough, then I went in with my Goldfaber 273 colored pencil to add in a little bit of shading towards the bottom. So yeah, totally overkill on the pumpkin. Then I went in with a Tombow drawing pen in 01 to tighten up those stamped lines. Tighten them up. So that was the coloring of my pumpkin. All in all, I really do love both of these papers, both the alcohol marker friendly paper and the Neenah paper. I think they both color on fantastic. This is the 2 side by side if you're interested. I'm using the coordinating dies to cut out my images today.
I'm going to use this tree die that's meant to cut out a tree. And I'm going to cut out my lightning in the sky from my background. So to do that, I just kind of line up where I want to cut him out, making sure not to cut too close on the edge here. I do want it to be inside the confines of this background. And then make sure that I'm not covering up any major lightning strike type pieces.
I didn't like the lightning placement on the original version of this card, so I made sure to kind of arrange that better this time around, which I think it turned out really well. So now I'm trying to line everything up just so that I can get the placement right, making marks on both the clouds and that grass portion, kind of trimming off where I need to.
So I'm going to use that same How You Doing stamp to get the sentiment here on my grass, and that's a great way if you're not quite sure how to incorporate a sentiment into your card design. Just stamp it on the grass or in the sky. I do it all the time.
I'm sure to prep my black cardstock with EK Success powder tool. Before I stamp, I'm going to use some Gina K Watermark ink to stamp the How You Doing sentiment right on the grass there, leaving room for my little monster guy on the left-hand side. I'm using Simon Says Stamp white embossing powder, and I'm just heating it up with my Wagner Studio heat tool. I don't care who you are. A black and white sentiment is where it's at.
Break me off a piece of that Kit Kat bar. Kind of sounds like something bad. So I have my Easy Light with the 3 lights, and I'm going to grab a battery and all my parts and pieces, and we're going to start putting this sucker together.
I'm taking Nuvo Deluxe liquid adhesive and I'm putting that as close to my lightning strike as possible. I'm going to layer some vellum underneath of that so that the light has some vellum to shine through. I do have some colored vellum, but I wanted my lightning strike to be white, so I'm using a clear vellum. I'm just making a little mark of where on the other side of the doorbell do I want my lightning switch to go. So taking the Easy Light and the 3 lights, I'm just manipulating the wires, they're quite bendable, to put them in place so that they're out of the way. I use some tear tape adhesive to put on the underside of the switch, and then I'm going to line up that piece of fog that I intend to use as the background. After I carefully press it down, it is secured in place under the door where I want it to be. You line up the plus signs on the battery and the switch, and voila! It's an Easy Light, baby. It's an Easy Light. Now I want to build up that panel so that it has a little home for my switch to live. Now I have made these cards. In fact, that original card that I made only had 1 layer of Scotch foam tape for the switch. That can happen. But this time around, I'm using double foam tape just to see if it happens differently, if it's better. And spoiler alert, you can just use 1 layer of foam tape. You don't need 2. I am using simple gift wrap tape to tape down my easy lights in place. And then make sure, I do have a tip for you. Make sure that you don't put adhesive where your lightning is striking, because I had to fix that, and that was a pain in the butt. I cut that out for you. You're welcome. I'm using that same Scotch foam tape to adhere my grass piece. I'm using liquid adhesive for the boards over the windows of the haunted or dilapidated house. The little monster guy is popped up on foam tape while the pumpkin is adhered flat with liquid adhesive. The same liquid adhesive is used to adhere the entire panel to my card base, and my Teflon bone folder comes in to score the card.
For those of you that are interested, here's the two cards side by side. This is the one I did originally, and this is the one we made today. I don't know. I mean, I guess the two papers are very nice to color on. You can kind of see for yourself the difference. I use the same kind of techniques for both. And then I do like the addition of the orange. I think Tim did a good job suggesting that we put a little orange in there for the Halloween. I hope you enjoyed my card project today. Follow me, follow Pearblossom Press, follow My Favorite Things on social media for all card making inspiration. I hope that you enjoyed this video, and until next time.
I would absolutely love it if you would like, comment, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much. And if you have a few extra minutes, my friends at Pearblossom Press and thedailymarker.com came up with this awesome marker bag. It goes from tall to small in a snap, and it is absolutely perfect for taking coloring supplies on the go and coloring with you when you travel. So if you have a few minutes, check it out. I think it's something that you'd want to see.